Welcome, dear viewers, to Whispers of Turkish Stars, where we don't just skim the surface of celebrity sparkle, we slip behind the scenes to understand what breathes beneath the smiles, the flare of cameras, and the memories that linger long after the spotlight fades. If you crave stories told with warmth, nuance, and a whisper of intrigue, hit like, subscribe, and tap that join button so we can keep bringing you the tales headlines only tease. Tonight, we step into the golden glow of the Ataturk Cultural Center, a night steeped in glamour, tightly coiled tension, and a single unexpected remark that reverberated far beyond its moment. The film? Sleepyhead. The faces lighting up the evening? Gökberk Yildirim, Cemre Arda, and the small, startlingly candid young actor whose words turned a premiere into a national conversation, Seydi Dorekyajit. Outside the Ataturk Cultural Center, the air seemed to shimmer. Bulbs bursting like fireworks, perfume floating delicate and expensive, and a murmur of predictions rolling over the crowd. Sleepyhead had finally arrived. For Gökberk, it wasn't just a much-talked-about return to cinema, the risk doubled. He wasn't only carrying the story on his shoulders, he was shaping it from behind the camera too. That kind of leap doesn't tap on the door, it kicks it open. He stepped onto the carpet and it glittered beneath his polished shoes as if the floor itself was applauding. And then, the evening's youngest guest emerged, little Seydi Dorekyajit, 9 years old, clutching his mother's hand with that effortless confidence children wear like a crown in rooms meant for grown-ups. The cameras adored him instantly. The crowd leaned in for him. He fielded questions with a disarming honesty that made every reply feel like a headline dressed as a joke. That's when it happened. Asked what he learned from working with Gökberk, Seydi paused, the kind of bright, curious silence children create without realizing they've placed a heartbeat on a cliff's edge. Then, with a playful squint and a grin, he said, "Gökberk looks amazing but acts like he's full of himself. When I grow up, I won't be like that. Innocent. Maybe even sweet in its boldness." And yet the air split like glass under pressure. The laughter that rose was light, but it carried a nervous tremor. Phones tilted upward in unison. Clips flew. And by the time the first screening ended, the internet had filled in its blanks. On Twitter, he was nicknamed the Tiny Truth-Teller. On Instagram, the quote looped on top of slowed, cinematic footage of Gökberk stepping onto the carpet. On TikTok, it became a beat to dance around, a soundbite with sharp edges. The teasing chorus crystallized fast, even the kids said it. Nuance rarely survives online. The word ego drifted back to attach itself to Gökberk's name like static, a single spark reawakening an old rumor. He didn't flinch. He didn't scold or sidestep. He smiled, tender and steady, as if the moment belonged to a different scale than the trending pages. "I adore Seydi," he said quietly. "He's sharp, he's sincere, and the future is lucky to have him." No bite. No backhanded humor. Just a simple grace that deflated half the room's tension. Standing beside him, Cemre reached for his arm, the faintest squeeze, and they moved forward together through the questions. No speeches, no instructions, only a united silence that said more than a dozen interviews ever could. It's easy to forget, amid the swarming clips and clever captions, that Sleepyhead wasn't only an event, it was a personal hinge swinging open. The film follows a man peeling back layers of memory, revisiting rooms of his past where the wallpaper still hums with what was never said. Seydi, playing the younger version of Gökberk's character, becomes the emotional seam of the piece, luminous, tender, painfully genuine. On a carpet, that sort of intensity can read as aloofness. On a set, it often looks like dedication. Crew members told us he watched the monitor the way a musician listens for a single off note in a symphony. Observant, not standoffish. A perfectionist, not a peacock. Between takes, he would crouch down, bring himself eye to eye with Seydi, offer a few quiet words, and melt back into the shadows behind the screen. That's not arrogance. That's immersion. But the internet doesn't speak that language, it speaks in loops, in cuts, in a chorus of 7-second certainties. By morning, the child's quip had become a magnifying glass over something bigger. The old, relentless argument about confidence and conceit in celebrity culture. Was the boy brave and right, people asked, or simply honest in the guileless way adults forget how to be? Commentators arrived on cue. Demet Özdemir posted that children often give truths without a plan to wound. Hazal Kaya echoed her, praising the clarity young performers bring to a set. But as opinions multiplied, the sheer volume began drowning out the work itself. What came from Gökberk wasn't a counterattack. It was a principle. Let the work breathe. Let the moment pass through. Keep the center still. This misunderstanding wasn't a first. Anyone who's followed his path, from romantic leads to characters carved with darker edges, knows that his quiet is rarely emptiness. It's preparation. People who've worked with him say he holds a set the way a conductor gathers a symphony, not from vanity, but from responsibility. On premiere night, he wore black, cut to the bone in its simplicity. No glinting pins, no look at me flourish. Just a presence you felt before you named it. When someone repeated Seydi's line to him, his smile held both the humor and the danger of fame in the same breath. Maybe that is his rebellion, meeting gossip with composure. For all the frenzy, Sleepyhead stood still and sure. Critics praised its emotional precision, the mirror-like balance of its structure, the tenderness buried in its quiet. The conversation spinning out from a child's unfiltered moment only amplified the film's themes: what we remember, how we interpret, how innocence leaves fingerprints on identity. In an odd, poetic twist, Seydi's joke became an accidental echo of the film's core, perception shaping truth. What reads as ego might be rigor. What sounds like judgment might be an awkward brand of admiration. The night mattered more than the charts suggested. Not a scandal, but a lesson in how devotion can masquerade as distance. Through it all, Cemre Arda held steady, still, poised, a soft smile ready when questions tried to dip too sharp. She knows the choreography of public misunderstanding, of narratives rearranged by strangers. Maybe that's why she didn't need to defend anything. She understands what lasts, and it isn't the noise. It's the work, the patience, the unseen hours. At one point, out of the spotlight's glare, she leaned in and said something that made Gökberk's shoulders drop, just slightly. It wasn't a pep talk. It was grounding, a reminder that what they lived on set remains untouched by a caption. By dawn, the headlines began to pivot. The spark of controversy cooled into admiration for the way both of them handled the moment. Critics went back to the film, finding new turns and performances they'd rushed through at first glance. Fans dissected Gökberk's dual role as actor and director. The teasing on social feeds softened into applause, then into genuine curiosity about process. In that shift, something became clear: Sleepyhead did what art is supposed to do: stir, unsettle, pull you toward feeling. Even the misunderstanding had weight. The question lingers, lit softly from within: was Seydi's sentence just innocent honesty, or did he tug at a deeper thread? Was Gökberk's calm a sign of wisdom or the careful poise of someone who's learned, painfully, how to carry a story's burden without breaking its spell? Crew voices that went unheard beside the trending clips started to surface. A camera assistant remembered how, minutes before a pivotal scene, Gökberk paced not in agitation but in focus, counting breaths, then turned, smiled at Seydi, and told him, "It's your moment, not mine." A lighting tech recalled how he refused to wrap a scene until the child laughed for real between takes, not because he demanded perfection, but because he wanted truth to land gently. The hours were long, but the mood on set rarely frayed, because the center stayed steady. Cemre's presence threaded through everything. On carpet and set, she was partner, co-conspirator, and the person who knows when silence is the kindest answer. She has lived through her own cycles of interpretation. Photos turned into stories that never existed, gestures misread as strategy. That's why she doesn't feed the machine. She lets it spin itself out. In a corridor after the screening, when a reporter tried to bait her into a sharper quote about the ego chatter, she smiled, tilted her head, and simply said, "We all learn from each other." The sentence folded softly into the night, and the bait sank untouched. Meanwhile, Seydi himself seemed blissfully unaware of the storm he'd whipped up. His mother posted a photo of him eating ice cream in a wrinkled t-shirt the next morning, captioned with a simple heart. The comments ranged from laughter to lectures, but under it all, one truth pulsed: children say what they see, and adults hear what they fear. For fans who have walked with Gökberk from starry-eyed leads to characters with serrated edges, the premiere's bruise looked familiar. It's the cost of refusing to perform sincerity and instead practicing it. The suit he wore, the way he anchored his steps, how he turned his body slightly so Seydi could stand in the camera's center, these weren't theatrics. They were deliberate choices in a night where everything could have become a defense. And still, the film remained. The score swelled where it needed to, pulling the audience back into the story every time the outside world tried to barge in. Critics called Sleepyhead a patient film, the kind that trusts you. Its frames are stitched with memory, its silence is shaped to be listened into, not hurried past. The premiere's accidental controversy didn't bruise the work, it sharpened its outline. You watched the scenes of a man trying to forgive his earlier self, and you couldn't help but think about how we treat the people on our screens when they step off them for a breath of real air. That's the delicate line fame draws, the difference between a mask and a craft. A child's honesty skimmed across it and sent ripples everywhere. The grace in response, Gökberk's soft answer, Cemre's hand on his arm, quieted the waters bit by bit. Not with denial, but with steadiness. By the weekend, the comments under the film's trailer were different. Fewer jokes, more questions. Viewers debated favorite scenes, favorite lines, the tenderness of a glance from the older character to the younger, how Seydi's eyes mirrored the man he would become. Somewhere inside that conversation, the word ego fell off the headline and slipped back into an old drawer. So tell us, was Seydi's little lightning bolt just a child being brave, or did he touch a truth adults edit out of themselves? Did Gökberk meet the moment with wisdom or with the discipline of someone who knows that a story is bigger than any storm around it? We want to hear you in the comments, your angles, your questions, your sense of what really mattered. And if you want more doors quietly opened into nights like this, behind-the-scenes glimpses of the forces shaping Turkish entertainment, remember to like, subscribe, and tap that join button to support Whispers of Turkish Stars directly. Your support keeps this community breathing and these stories unfolding. Because here at Whispers of Turkish Stars, we don't chase noise, we follow the thread of truth that hides between the lines, the kind you feel even when the cameras stop rolling. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and remember, sometimes the smallest voices carry the largest mirrors.